applied again, no problem. Another year, applied again, no problem. My lawyer told them, I says, this is obviously not going away, make it permanent. So finally, they said it was temporary, but after that year, I get a letter in the mail stating my benefits are going to expire. I need to reapply. Well, that last time I never got that letter. I never got the notice that it's going to expire. So they made it permanent, which is good because my illness gets worse every year. But it's just that time period. I don't remember at what point I started getting ODSP. At what point during our photo sessions, but like I say, that was the best time of my life. So February 2006 is when my illness started, and February 2007, I don't remember the exact date, is when I had to quit work. So I managed to hold on to my job for a year, and it was kind of a bittersweet situation, I guess you could say. The sweet part was now I have more time to do photography that I'm really enjoying. Bad news is, or the bitter part of it, was I now have a lower income. Right? For that first little while I was on welfare. So I was kind of stuck with the camera that I had. I wasn't going to be able to do any more upgrading or anything. So I was kind of stuck that way. So in February 2007 to, I believe it was December of the same year, I was on welfare that whole time while I was going through this process. And in December, I was granted ODSP, and I got all that money back. So things were good for a while. My illness was still getting worse gradually, but during that time, 2007, by the way, was my favorite year of all the activities that we did. That was, I think I got the best pictures. You haven't seen the pictures. I've shown little bits here and there when I was doing my videos, but it's really hard to show pictures on YouTube. I'm not crazy about making slideshows and that. So I am considering making a website right now again. I'm not going to rely on doing everything manual. It's all going to be automatic. I'll get into that in a bit. For now, everything was going good. And like I say, it was getting more difficult to keep up with the boys with my illness getting worse. And at some point, they were getting older. They wanted to start spending more time with their friends. And being brothers, they were starting to fight. And I told them, I says, you can fight on the way there, you can fight on the way back, but while we're there, if you start fighting, we're going home. I have a real hard time listening to arguing, and it just took all the fun out of it, right? And of course, there were a couple times, we didn't have to do it often, but there were a couple times I says, okay, let's go home. I don't remember, it wasn't even something worth fighting about, but brothers, right? There were a couple times that we left early, and of course, they blamed each other for it. but it was enjoyable. It got to be financially more difficult too, because the boys were getting paid for their outings. Every time we planned to go out, they got paid for it. It was an official photo shoot, and whether it's pictures or video, whatever, it didn't matter. It was a planned shoot, so they got paid for it. And of course, being on a lower income at the time, and made that a little more difficult, right? But I got to the point where I started owing them money, but I kept track of it and eventually caught up. Also during this time, their father had left. He met up with his ex-girlfriend on Facebook, and he decided he'd rather be with her. I mean, you can imagine what the household was like at that time. It wasn't exactly pleasant. Again, I hate listening to arguing. So I was kind of stuck in a place now. I got lower income. Am I going to be able to afford a place on my own? Now that I have an illness, will I be able to manage a place on my own? So questions started up. And I was faced with a decision. Do I go off on my own? Do I go with him? Do I stay with her? Right? Her and the boys. Because obviously he's not going to take the kids. This person that he went with wanted nothing to do with the boys. So obviously they were going to stay with their mother. Yeah, I'm not going to get into the whole situation because it's not related to me, but now this is the situation that I was in at the time. And, well, I don't know how to say it without being insulting. Let's just say she made that decision for me. Not as far as telling me what to do, but just I couldn't stand her. I could not stand her. So that took away one of the options. It was either on my own or stay with the mother. But once he finally decided he was leaving, decided that's what he wanted to do, then she asked if I could stick around to help her out. So, like I said, I've been with them since. So, as far as my photography goes, sort of kind of tapered off a little bit, and I started hanging out with a Walmart manager, not the same one. If you've ever worked for Walmart, you know there's like multitude levels of management. They get way too many managers in each store, and they get moved around all the time to different stores and that. We had a new one, and he started hanging out with me. When you're a Walmart manager, you're not supposed to associate with the peasants on the bottom rung, basically. That's one of their rules. And even though I wasn't working there anymore, I was a former employee, he still wasn't allowed to hang out with me. So we just kind of hung out in secret. It still makes me laugh. A business telling me who or even him, who we can and can't associate with outside the workplace, right? Sorry, I don't go for that crap. And sadly, YouTube's kind of doing that now too, but I'll get to that. So we hung out for a bit. We'd go for a drive at night or something. He didn't drive. He was another family that didn't have a vehicle. They didn't drive. So he'd get home from work and he wants to unwind because I was a night stalker at Walmart. I stocked the shelves at night, and that was stressful enough. I can't imagine what the managers are like. You know, unless you're cold-hearted and you don't give a crap what people think of you. You know, you don't. It doesn't bother you how you treat the employees. Then it's gonna be like levels higher of stress for these poor people, right? I can't imagine what some of them go through. We had a district manager come in one time, and our night manager at that particular time, she was a lot of fun. She played around as much as we did, right? And she knows what we're like. And this new policy came through. I can't remember what it was now, but everybody had a specific purpose. Instead of just doing what we need to do, what we were normally doing to make the store run, they come out with this new policy, and she knew that we weren't going to go for it, especially me. I had no problem saying no to my managers, right? That's dangerous. And I had a specific department. I had sports, sometimes toys, I had hardware, and sometimes I'd do the paint department. That was my area. The more you do that area, the more you're going to know it, right? You know exactly where everything's going to go. You know how many of the specific product's going to fit in a specific spot on the shelf. So when they move you around, you have no idea where something is. You spend time looking for it. That's not productive. If you do the same area every night, you know it, right? And everything gets done a lot quicker. And I know if I pick a box up off the skid, I know whether that's going to go or not, based on how often I build it, right? And there are nights you can't always be there, because there are some, especially like the paper, toilet paper, paper towels, stuff like that. That needs to be stocked every night. That's because they're big packages, right? And once that sells, you get this big gaping hole. So that has to be done every night. And other nights can get neglected, like sports, hardware. They can get neglected for a night, right? So they'll move into this other department, and that's fine. But to permanently move you from department to department to department each and every night, in time, you would get to know the entire store, but, it would take some time. And I remember what it was now. We were supposed to, when we empty out our boxes, we break them down and we put them on an empty skid, or we have a bin or whatever that we put it in. Either way, whichever way it went that night, sometimes both. Then at the end of the night, when we're done, we take our boxes out to the back and stick them in the compactor and make cardboard bales that get sent out and that. And everybody did their own, right? But this new policy was each night somebody specific, that was their job, to go around and collect everybody's this cardboard. And that leaves one person not stocking, right? And like I said before, Walmart's all about numbers, number of people working versus number of skids that were processed and all that. So she knew it was going to be a problem, and she knew that was going to be a problem for me specifically. So she knew, she says, that's not going to work. And I don't remember, I think I was taking my cardboard out at the time, and they were in the back, and he was cutting her down pretty good. What he said to her was just wrong. I couldn't believe it. And she stood there, he said something to her, and just the look on her face, it says, do you have a problem with that? You look like you have a problem with that. She was almost in tears. I felt so bad for her. This guy, I have no problem saying it. He was a complete a-hole. I could not stand that guy. I hated it. Every time I knew he was in the building, I hated it. I absolutely hated it. I would not go out back. And he said something to me one time, I can't remember what it was. We had a limited number of pump trucks. Pump truck is like it's got the forks on it with the wheels, and it's got the handle that you lift the skid up with, and that. We had a limited number of those. And if you're in an area where you're doing a lot, you move skids around a lot. And I had one that I was using, and there's other ones around the store at the time, but if somebody needed one, they'll come grab one, whichever one's available, and they'll go use it and whatever, and it doesn't come back, right? So you get someone that needs it and constantly using it, and you get someone that has like a one-time use for it. It really gets annoying, right? And this kept happening to me this night because I was constantly moving skids around. I had to keep moving them, so I had to have a pump truck handy for all this movement, and it kept disappearing on me, and it was really ticking me off. I was in a bad mood that night. That's probably why. It was really ticking me off. So I went back out back to grab another one, because that's usually where they end up. And this guy says to me, he says, "Well, if you're not doing anything, can you do this?" I was like, I was in a hurry. I needed to get something moved. And all I went out back for was to grab a pump truck. And he said that to me. That really pissed me off. I almost said something to him. I would have quit that night if I had to, just to say something to him. I almost did. It just pissed me off so much. Assuming that I'm not doing anything because I'm walking out back empty-handed, right? And I don't remember. I said something. I can't remember. I don't remember what it was, but he said, in reference to my job description, he says, "and other." I almost lost it. So I never said anything. I did what he wanted me to do, grabbed my pump truck and stormed out. I was so pissed. I was so angry. I don't miss that. I missed the work. I loved it. It's like I say, it's a minimum wage job, but I loved the work that I did, right? And I was there for 5.5 years, so I got to know what I was doing, right? And if I get if I get finished what I need to do first, I know there's other things that can be done, right? I'm never without something to do. So, when you first start out, you have a specific job that you're assigned to do. You get it done, and then you think, okay, what do I do now? Look for the manager and ask, right? But once you're there a while, you know what needs to be done. So if you finish what you're doing, you just automatically start doing something else that you know needs to be done, right? And I was put in charge of seasonal stuff. When the seasons change, different times a year, you get different products on the shelf. And every 4-foot section is called a modular. And you get this, basically an instruction sheet on how to put this together. You get pegboards with all the holes in it, and the pegs that you put in are a specific number from the top and a number apart and that, and you set everything up. The problem with that is it's usually just a guide. Things don't always fit. I was doing the barbecue section one night, and I was trying to set it up, and they had, I'm not sure what they're called. They're like the long thing with the 2 forks on the end of it and 2 spikes. Well, according to this module, it hangs down through a shelf. That ain't gonna work. And in the camping section, it had lanterns. The lanterns were stretched out so that they would fit. And I don't know who designs these stupid things, but they don't work, right? So there is a little bit of adjustment that you need to do. And areas that have shelves, there's holes in the upright posts where each shelf goes, and you have to count number, and there's specific ones, and they're never accurate. You have to set them up. So the seasonal area Halloween, Christmas, gardening, stuff like that. There's no set mods for that. There's a section for specific things. The next section over is for other specific things, and you just basically make things fit. And when you walk in the door, you got the area right at the front. That's also a seasonal area. Halloween candy will be there. Christmas stuff will be there. Backpacks, back to school stuff will be there. I was in charge of that too. And the issue with that is that's the first thing the customers see when they come in the store. There cannot be any empty space. Things have changed now, but at that time, that had to be full. It didn't matter what was there. So when back to school stuff starts coming in, you fill up with whatever you've got, right? Put it where it's supposed to be, and then you just fill in the rest with whatever. A lot of times it'll be like packages of paper towel or Rubbermaid bins, just to fill the shelves. They have to be full. I was in charge of that too. And the same thing, there's no set. For most of it, some of it is, specific. The Halloween candy, there's a specific one here. And for back to school, you got all the pencil crayons together. You get all the regular crayons together. Pencil cases are in a specific place. But at the beginning, it's really difficult to do that because you don't have everything that you need, right? So you put it generally where it's supposed to be, and if you have empty space, you squish it together and put something else in beside it, right? And then as more stuff comes in, then you spread it back out and put everything where it's supposed to be. I was in charge of that, and I really enjoyed that because the fun night manager said to me one night that it was a perfect job for me because I'm very meticulous. So but that's the way I am. I pay attention to details. When I set something up, okay, here's a really good example. We had one night manager. He was a moron. I had no problem saying that. He was a cool guy, but he was just he wasn't all there. And in electronics, they had this shelf. It's called a four-way. It's a shelf that sits out in the middle of nowhere, and it's got four sides to it. I had game stuff that I had to put on it. It was chargers, game controllers, adapters, cords, stuff like that. And there was no set instructions on how to do it. He wanted me to do it. So he left me with that. And when I set something up like that, I look at it from the customer's point of view. He wanted all PlayStation stuff on one side, Nintendo stuff on another side, Xbox stuff on another side. So all one game system is together. But I'm looking at it from the customer's point of view. If I'm looking for a game controller, I look at one side, it's all game controllers. I go another side, it's all cords and adapters and stuff. That's how I set it up. So all the game controllers are all together on one side, and whatever on the other three, right? And at the end of the night, he looked at it, and he didn't like what I did, and he said, "It's not supposed to be like that. You're supposed to have all one system on." And I explained to him why I did it that way. I said, "If I'm a customer and I'm looking for something, this is what I want to see." I says, "I'm not looking at it from a manager's point of view, where you got a specific product, a specific place. As a customer, this is what I want to see." Sorry about that. Surprisingly, he understood what I meant. But this guy, he was a workplace hazard. I'll put it that way. He was on a ladder one night, and he was doing something with the shelf, and he was pounding it with a hammer, trying to get the shelf in place, and he hit himself in the head with a hammer and gave himself a concussion. Another night, he sneezed and whacked his head off a shelf. He was a walking hazard. He was quite a person, I'll tell you. I didn't really like him that much as a manager. He was, like I said, he was a cool guy, but I didn't like him much as a manager. And another example of that, I can't think of the specifics of it, but the store manager that told me about fibromyalgia, what it was, told me more about it than the doctor. She was pretty cool too. And she come in one night, and I was working up at that part at the open of the store, and she asked me about something. I explained the same thing to her. I said, we don't have everything that we need to fill what needs to be filled right now, because not everything's come in. I think it was Halloween at that time, and it was the same situation. Like, I'm looking at it from a customer's point of view, and she completely understood what I was saying, and she actually liked what I did. And like the other guy who didn't, she actually liked what I did. She liked how I set it up. And another part was the pool supplies. That's another thing that's up front in the summertime. All the pool chemicals and inflatables and stuff like that, they're all up there. And because I was working that department, I had to go down to Kitchener for a seminar on pool chemical safety and what to do in case of a spill and all that. That's pretty cool. One thing about Walmart, when they send you somewhere, they pay good. They pay you a certain amount per kilometer and that, and they make it worthwhile. So I was supposed to go with somebody else, but being as I was in Kitchener, I figured this would be a good time to go visit my parents, right? Because I'm down in that area. So I don't know how I got on this topic. It is related to what I was doing, I guess, but it's not really part of what I wanted to talk about. But anyways, I said, well, I'd rather drive myself, because I'm already, 3/4 of the way to visit my parents. I'd kind of like to stay down in that area for the night, right? So they allowed that, which I thought was really cool. So rather than, paying one person for this trip, they're actually paying two people, right, for the same trip. And they actually agreed with it, which I thought was kind of nice. Well, I think my manager kind of helped out with that. I think she pulled some strings behind the scenes. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is that I loved my job. I really loved it. I hated the management structure. I hated the lack of compassion to the employees from the higher ups, and even towards the lower managers. Everybody's under pressure. Our night manager is under pressure for us to do good, because he's under pressure from the one above him, which is under pressure from the one above him, which is under pressure from the store manager, which is under pressure from the district manager, and it all flows downhill to us peasants, right? So everything's on us. And maybe that's how the store works. Maybe that's how they've been successful, but it's rough. It's very stressful. And like I said, with the onset of my illness, stress was one of the suspected causes or contributing factors, and that there was a lot of stress there, to say the least. But I love the job. I love the work that I did. That's the only thing I miss about it.